Welcome to today's Explainer. As we get started, I want you to do something really quick for me. Think of that one thing you've always wanted to do. You know, that one unfulfilled dream, desire, or plan you've been holding back on. Maybe it's a massive career pivot, a relationship decision, or just a personal life goal that's bounding with potential. You got it clearly in your head? Good. Hold on to that thought. Okay, let's dive into this. I want you to honestly ask yourself, why didn't you do it? What was the real underlying barrier? Because for the vast majority of us, if we strip away all the polite, socially acceptable excuses about timing or money, the honest answer almost always comes down to one single paralyzing fear. And we're going to confront that invisible barrier head on today. What will people think? Seriously, just think about the tragic, everyday cost of that phrase. Three simple words have quietly stopped so many lives, halted so much incredible potential, and killed so many brilliant ideas. It acts as this invisible prison that we willingly lock ourselves inside of. And you know what the ultimate tragedy is here? We're literally the ones holding the key in our pockets the entire time. Section 1. Riya's story, the cost of inaction. To make this abstract psychological fear completely tangible, we're going to look at a deeply relatable story directly from our source material. So, meet Riya. She's 29, living in Lucknow, an MBA grad, and she's rocking a super secure marketing job at a reputable company with a great salary. Her family, thrilled, proud of her stability. But Riya had a secret. She desperately wanted to quit that comfortable job to start her own small digital consulting business. She'd done the research, built the plan, she even had clients lined up. There was no financial crisis looming, no practical barrier whatsoever. But she froze. She simply didn't do it. And why? Purely because of those loud imagined conversations playing on loop in her head. Let's move to the timeline and see how this builds. A year ago, Riya's business plan was completely ready to go, but she was completely paralyzed by the fear of what her relatives and neighbors would say. For an entire year, she avoided making the leap. And that perfectly fine job? It became absolutely unbearable because she knew she was only staying there to appease society. That is a full year of deep, agonizing resentment. But eventually, she broke out and took action. And yeah, for about 1 to 3 months, she faced exactly those awkward social comments she dreaded. But look at her 3 months later. Her business is actually profitable, she is genuinely happy, and, incredibly, those exact same relatives are now coming to her for business advice. Section 2. Exposing the invisible audience. Now, what's really interesting about this concept is that the period of social discomfort for Riya was just a tiny temporary blip compared to a whole year of suppressed potential. So it's time to shift gears from emotional storytelling to logical analysis. We need to expose and completely dismantle this fear of judgment by looking at the psychology driving it, which is known as the spotlight effect. This proves that we significantly overestimate how much other people notice, judge, or even pay attention to our choices. We walk around every day believing there's a literal blinding spotlight highlighting our every move. But the liberating truth? The audience we fear mostly does not even exist. People are simply too absorbed in their own survival to spend more than a passing 10 seconds thinking about your life choices. Just think about this stark comparison. Your brain creates a terrifying, hypercritical, imagined audience. You picture your relatives harshly judging your sudden career switch, or your neighbors endlessly gossiping about your potential failure over their evening tea. But what's the actual reality? Those relatives are deeply consumed by their own quiet financial anxieties. And those neighbors, they're stressing out over their own kids' education and future. The very people whose judgments paralyze you are barely even thinking about you at all. Now, let's be totally fair and grounded here. Social disapproval isn't a complete myth, especially within tightly knit families. Pushback definitely happens, but we absolutely must distinguish between two core concepts: temporary discomfort versus actual damage. Ask yourself, is the disapproval actually damaging? Like, does it practically ruin your life, your shelter, or your physical safety? Or is it merely uncomfortable, resulting in a few awkward dinner conversations and some temporary gossip? We constantly, and I mean constantly, mistakenly confuse temporary awkwardness with permanent, life-ruining damage. Section 3. The 4-step playbook for action. Knowing all this logically is a fantastic start, but how do we practically overcome it when the fear suddenly spikes? Well, it's time to transition into the solution. We're going to walk through the authoritative, highly practical framework that Riya used to finally break free from her invisible prison and confidently launch her business. It's a simple 4-step playbook for action. Step 1, be incredibly specific. Step 2, time box the discomfort. Step 3, narrow your focus to consult only one person. And step 4 is the ultimate perspective shift, consulting your 10-year future self. Let's break these down so you can apply them today to that unfulfilled dream you thought of at the very beginning. Let's tackle steps 1 and 2 together. Vaguely fearing that people will judge me creates this massive, paralyzing cloud of anxiety. You have to pierce that cloud by getting specific. Literally write down exactly who will say what and what the actual practical consequence will be. When you ink it on paper, you instantly realize how tiny the threat truly is. Then, time box it. Ask yourself, if the absolute worst case scenario happens, how long will the discomfort realistically last? A week? A month? We so often make permanent, life-altering decisions just to avoid purely temporary discomfort. So the crucial point here is the number one. When you're making a major life decision, you should only care about the opinion of exactly one genuinely trusted person in your life. That's it. Seek their counsel, deeply value their honest input, and completely let go of the imaginary audience. We have to stop taking feedback from a massive crowd of people who will never actually have to live with the consequences of our choices.
And that brings us to the final, and honestly the most powerful step. Ask your 10-year future self this really heavy question. I want you to imagine yourself a full decade from now. Which weight is heavier for you to carry? A single month of awkward social conversations back in the past, or an entire lifetime of permanent regret because you never even tried to realize your own potential? Almost always, the temporary judgment of others fades to absolute dust, but the regret of abandoning yourself, that lasts forever.
Section 4. Taking control of your narrative. We've deconstructed the fear, exposed the imaginary audience, and laid out the playbook. Now, it's time to talk about stepping into your true power. This final section is about officially firing that imaginary audience from your mind and becoming the sole director of your own life's narrative. And this brilliantly illustrates the core philosophy we've been building towards. What will people think? Remember, that is their question. It is entirely their burden, their problem, and their fleeting curiosity. It has absolutely nothing to do with you, your capabilities, or your potential. You do not have to answer their question with your life choices. The only question that genuinely matters is this: what do you want to become? That is your question. Your question is infinitely more important. So I invite you to drop a comment below and share that one thing you've been holding back on. Let's break that invisible barrier together right now. And make sure you join me tomorrow for our next explainer, where we'll dive into finding the kind of deeply fulfilling work that doesn't just pay the bills, but actually makes you feel alive. Until then, keep focusing on your own question.